Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton at Big C Sports. Coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France, of course. You good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful May the 27th, 2020. Follow the Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, just the typical another rainy day here in the south. It was so bad they had to scrap the space launch today down in Florida. But also, Charlton, it's a very solemn day here in America where the death toll has reached over 100,000 lost American lives, Charlton, here in America from COVID-19. But I also want to thank those frontline healthcare workers for that admirable job that they do every day in trying to preserve and save those lives. The nurses, the doctors, and all the first responders, Charlton.
They are doing a very good job. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Also, Big C Sports is powered by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away, and I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV or you'll be looking at a still picture. Big C, I want to make sure we give out our Veterans Crisis Hotline. I know they really are experienced at helping veterans and their loved ones. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, Charlton, I mean, when we think about the loss of over 100,000 American lives to this COVID-19, Charlton, we lose 22 veteran lives every day to suicide, a horrific disease that our government has put no emphasis in trying to curb. And when we think about how needy these veterans are every day, think about how bad this pandemic is, and the country is looking out for everybody, even the government. The forgotten entity in this, Charlton, are our veterans, and our veterans are struggling. They've been struggling mentally and socially ever since they left the service branch. And to give out the suicide prevention hotline number, Charlton, we know that suicide has been on the rise during this COVID pandemic, but it's been there steady every day for the veterans. So giving out the suicide prevention hotline number, Charlton, trying to help veterans, trying to get them mental and physical assistance through whatever means is possible. That's the best that we can do, Charlton.
Yeah, and I know we'll do our best, Big C. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. And you can hopefully get some help. Really appreciate giving out that PSA. Also very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, DirecTV, AT&T, Uverse TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants. When you reach out to them, just tell them Big C Central. The goal is simple. Recruit 100 real estate brokers. Put their property listings on TV, just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it. Even sports teams are going to start doing it too. Watch TV work for your real estate. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. For opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com, and you can get some opportunities in real estate also. You know, everybody's talking about this great country that we live in, and I really appreciate how we do pay homage to all of our military veterans, and I just love the fact that we have the chance to do that. There's a time back in the day that African Americans were not even allowed to be on the airwaves in this great country. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they weren't allowed to do a lot of things, Charlton. They weren't even allowed to be in the military in this great country.
Yeah, that's true. And so just the fact that we can do things and do with our own spin on it, our own frame of mind, I really appreciate that. I want to just touch on something. I know we talked about it yesterday, and I hear, you know, a lot of people are doing their thing on it today too. And before I get into it, I just want to ask you, with all the talk of what's happened in, I think it was Minneapolis, I finally saw the video. And sometimes you can see things in your mind, but until you see it with your own eyes, then it doesn't really resonate as much as it could. And so in seeing that video, and I'm glad you brought it to my attention yesterday on the show, Big C, I also saw some things on CNN. And I was telling you also that even over the last 5 years that we've been doing Big C Sports, there are a lot of times when people love you when you just wear a uniform and you just shut up and dribble, but don't do anything to elucidate life because they say, well, that's kind of threatening or it makes me feel uncomfortable. But I really appreciate our platform. I know Big C talked yesterday about what happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So now I told you the sports world connects a lot of people. LeBron James, Colin Kaepernick, they also spoke out about the senseless murder of a man in Minneapolis. And it happened in broad daylight by officers who were sworn to protect and serve. And they went on and filed a fake police report. Big C, I know that people don't like talking about this stuff, but that's the only way it gets better. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, first and foremost, I want to hear your feelings and thoughts on it, Charlton, because you heard me resonate on it yesterday, and I will laminate a little more, but I want to get your thoughts and feelings on this.
Well, I'll tell you this. It was horrific, but I'd seen it before. It's like, and I'm going to share, this is my thoughts. When I was 18 years old, I had gotten pulled over, but it was at nighttime, by a highway patrolman. And as he walked to the front of the car, he asked me for my driver's license and registration. And as I said, okay, and I reached to get my driver's license and registration, and when I looked up, he had a gun in his hand. That's the first time I had seen a gun pointed at me. Now, I had seen guns before because I grew up with them. But I remember I was 18 years old, and so what I saw yesterday, I had seen it before, even though I didn't get, assaulted. But it put a lot of fear in my heart, and it made me fearful of law enforcement. If that makes any sense to you. So what I saw yesterday, I saw it when I was 18. It just didn't go that far. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, 20% of black males in America have had a gun pulled on them. Probably 40% of black males have been pulled over by the police at one time or another for various reasons. What America witnessed yesterday, Charlton, was a cold-blooded murder. That's what they witnessed on television. And you also witnessed falsified police reports.
Yeah.
You had a police chief saying, well, we're going to do investigations, what you saw. And if people look further, the police had him handcuffed next to his car. They walked him 40 feet away from his car, Charlton, and set him down on a curb, okay?
Yeah.
While he was handcuffed. They got him up from the curb, took him out to the street, Charlton, and the officer threw him down in the street. Now, let me give you an example of what I'm talking about, Charlton. We've been on the air 9 minutes, okay?
Yeah.
9 minutes. This is how long that officer had his knee in that man's throat. 9 minutes, Charlton. So you think about the time when you introduced our show tonight to right now, 9 minutes. That's how long the officer had his knee in his throat where this man was begging for his life, saying he could not breathe. The guy even asked for his mother. And you had other police officers standing around witnessing what was going on, saying that it was okay.
Yeah.
You had innocent bystanders who had nothing to do with this incident pleading with the officers, let him go. He can't breathe. Don't you hear him? And the officer told him to get his fucking ass in the car.
Yeah.
That's what, excuse my French, but that's what he told him right there on the video, and everybody heard it, Charlton. But, we got to stop asking athletes, and we got to stop asking citizens to be accountable for the bad actions of officers. Officers need to be accountable for the bad actions of officers. They passed the law in Minneapolis last year because of incidents like this that occurred 2 years ago, Charlton, where if you see another officer using excessive force, you must intervene. This is the reason why all 4 officers were fired today, Charlton, because they did not intervene. They were culpable in what occurred with this man's death, Charlton. They aided and abetted the death of this private citizen. And here it is, he was arrested, Charlton, for a suspicion of forgery. Not a heinous crime, Charlton, not a physical crime against another human being, alleging forgery, Charlton.
Yeah.
He did not commit a physical crime against anybody. He didn't harm anybody physically. And he was cooperating with the police where they said he was resisting arrest. So when they tell you to sit down on the sidewalk and you sit down and you got your handcuffs on, I guess that's resisting arrest if you're a black man. But we got to stop calling on black athletes to voice their opinion. And that pisses me off every time I hear a sports reporter on television or on radio saying, well, we got this, statement from this black athlete or this black athlete. Why the hell can't that sports reporter give his input? He is not human and compassionate towards black people unless they're playing a sport. So he wants that black athlete to speak for him to save his butt because he may feel like that officer felt. So he has no dog in the fight. And this is the reason why it still continues, Charlton, because the people who are supposed to deliver the message refuse to deliver the message. They refuse to. So they want to take a statement from Colin Kaepernick. They want to take a statement from LeBron James. And you're saying that you're not salient enough or compassionate enough as a person that what you witnessed, just like those black athletes did, that you won't say anything compassionate to the family or that it was wrong by the police officer.
Well, I know everybody has a reaction to it, and I just juxtapose that to Dylan Booth.
But we're not looking at it. Normally when you get these tapes about the police, Charlton, we're talking about a few seconds that transpire. We're not talking about a few seconds, Charlton. We're talking about a 9-minute process where he kept his knee in this man's throat for 9 minutes.
Yeah.
Normally when you get a video, you're talking about something, and everybody says, and I understand, police have to act in split seconds, okay? This guy took minutes. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7, not 8, but 9 damn minutes to kill a man, Charlton, and was okay with it.
Yeah, and I know everybody has their own reaction to it. And as I always believed, growing up, what I was taught to stay alive in those situations, I don't know if many white Americans have those conversations with their own children.
You watched the video. Didn't you see him cooperating, Charlton?
Yeah,
He did everything he could do to stay alive.
Yeah.
That was not enough. We're not talking about 30 years ago. We're talking about right now, today, 2020. Black people are fighting 2 diseases in America. They're fighting COVID-19 and they're fighting racism 2020. That's what black people are up against right now.
Well, I understand that too, but we can't stay in our cave like the bears and hibernate. And I do.
He wasn't in the cage, Charlton.
Yeah.
He was cooperating.
No, I understand.
Just like you said, you cooperated with a police officer when you were 18 years old. He asked you for your ID. You cooperated. You got your ID and you got your license for him. You got your insurance card. All right?
Yeah.
You gave him that. This man cooperated also, Charlton. He gave him his ID. He got out of the car and let them cuff him up. He walked over to the curb just like they told him. They set him down at the curb,
Yeah.
Charlton. Another officer came up and intervened. It wasn't even the officer who took him out of the car, Charlton. This was an arriving officer who decided he wanted to kill him. So that's not staying in the cage. You were cooperating and it cost you your life.
Yeah, I know he was doing everything he was asked to do. But you asked me the question, what were my thoughts on it? And as I was telling you, I've seen it so many times before. It's like, how many times can you watch a movie? You already know the ending of it, and I've seen that too many times. And what I share with my own feeling is, even though I was 18 years old, and the officer happened to be Caucasian, and he asked me for my driver's license registration, as I said okay, and I went to get it. When I looked up, he was at the front of the car with his gun, and it shocked me. Be honest with you, I wasn't expecting to see that, but I complied, and I gave it to him, and he walked back to his car, and he did whatever he had to do for 5 minutes, and he came, and then he let me go. I think he even gave me a speeding ticket, if I recall, but I remember being kind of nervous, really nervous, but at that time, I still remember my parents said, yes, sir, no, sir, just comply. So I did all of that, and I did not end up like the gentleman yesterday with really thoughts and prayers for the family of Mr. Floyd. I always feel like we can do like what a lot of sports shows used to do, and they don't do it now. Some of them, at least the guys that read, if they're just a dumb guy with a microphone, they're going to argue about who's bigger, stronger, and faster. That's fine too. But I do see what I found to be the truth, Big C, that's my truth, You have some former NBA players, and I know you say it's not up to the athletes, but I think it can start there because a lot of guys don't say anything. There was Stephen Jackson. He was friends with Floyd. There's another group of African-American athletes, Odell Beckham Jr., DeMarcus Lawrence, Jaylen Brown, Donovan Mitchell. So some NFL and NBA players have spoken out about that. And just like me when I was 18, I wonder how many times what happened to me happens, but you don't get shot, you don't get handcuffed and thrown to the ground, but you do get kind of emotionally, I guess, shocked, and it affects you every time you have a black and white pull up behind you. That make any sense to you? Your thoughts?
Charlton, I've had guns pulled on me 4 times by police. I've been in the middle of the street with a half a dozen guns drawn on me. I have, because I fit the image of somebody else. So I know what it feels like to have guns pulled on you, taken out of your car, laying down in the street. And them knowing that you hadn't done anything, but they have the power to do that. The thing that that I'm numb to is bringing an athlete on television, taking his text or tweet, whatever he puts out there. When you have a mic and you have a broadcast show and production, and you make a living off these athletes, but you want to take what these athletes say and you want to stay immune because you don't want to go out there and say, well, what these police officers done is wrong. The reason why it keeps doing it, it keeps happening, Charlton, because they're not saying it wrong. You tell me what broadcast that you can listen to in the past 2 days, the rest of the week, to say that what these police officers did in Minneapolis was wrong. And until you get it on the news broadcast, Charlton, on the sports broadcast, that the broadcasters start saying what these officers are doing wrong, they have autonomy to do it. Until the public speaks out, until you get some tweets from some police officers saying that it's wrong, some police chiefs, some politicians, the people who matter. You know, when you say you got a response from an athlete, you might as well tell him to dribble the ball or catch the ball or do whatever he does for his living, because that's just how much it means.
You know, ironically, there's even some Caucasian players, J.J. Watt from Houston Texans, and he tweeted out some things saying it was very upsetting and disgusting, as well as some other players. But I wish I had the chance to know the answer, but I can say through my own interviews and dialogue with white friends over the years from high school through college and in their professional life, I don't know any of them that have ever told me that they've ever had a gun pulled on them by law enforcement, even though many of them drink and drive. They'll go out and go to a club and drink and drive and make it home, and sometimes they've gotten pulled over and they were allowed to let go.
The police took Dylan Booth home in South Carolina when he went into a church and killed 9 black parishioners in a church, Charlton.
Yeah.
The police took him to get a hamburger, okay? So they were okay with him killing 9 black people. And as I keep saying, and I can reiterate, we can get all the thoughts from any athlete that's out there. Those athletes don't have a news broadcast outlet, Charlton. They don't have a sports broadcast outlet. So they're reading a quote from this athlete or get a little hit from an Instagram feed, Charlton. The broadcasters have a right to American citizens. You got to understand, all broadcast companies are public access, all right?
Yeah.
The public deserves a service from them, Charlton, a public service. Just like we talk about the military veterans, they have to address that what the police did was wrong. They just can't keep showing it and say, well, the video is graphic and disturbing. They got to just say the police are wrong. When they do that, maybe they'll stop doing what they're doing.
Well, it's ironic because what I wanted to ask, and for anyone listening anywhere in the universe, I want to get this thought because you asked me my thoughts, and I'm still reminded when I was 18 and I saw a white police officer pull a gun on me when he asked me for my driver's license and registration, and I gave it to him. I wasn't belligerent. I said, okay, let me get it. It's in my pocket. But I still think about that. So the point is, Big C, I think as frustrating as it can be, there's still a survival guide that we got to have. But before I touch on some things that I think are part of the survival guide, because I also have a son going off to college, and I've always talked to him about how to behave if you get pulled over since he was about 8 years old. Because too many times driving in Northern California, when I've seen kids, especially in the summertime, being pulled over, they were black men with white guys surrounding their car. And I've known almost every person that I've ever known to do drugs in my lifetime, they were white, mostly in college. From cocaine to marijuana, and not one has ever been arrested that I know of. They did it with impunity. they act as if, hey, well, it's just whatever it is. But almost everyone I've known incarcerated has been black from that same substance that they've now legalized, Big C. So what I would love to see, and I want your thoughts on it, if media can see this and be disgusted by it for one day, and then the next day they're going to get right back into, I can't wait until the season starts. I can't wait until the guys that look like Mr. Floyd are going to run around on the football and basketball field for my entertainment. I would hope that my white brethren, and I don't hold out a lot of hope, but I got a little bit of hope that maybe our white brethren in the media will speak to this more than just one day, so we can find out what white Americans feel about what just happened. More than just it's disgusting, but I would love to have them give out some rules of behavior to say how it happens, because most of these officers come from homes in households that look just like most of our broadcasters on TV, Big C. They have to have some inkling as to how to stop it, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I've constantly mentioned that until they talk about it. You look at Ahmaud Arbery, Charlton, who was killed 3 months ago in Georgia.
Yeah.
And everybody saw that disgusting, horrific video. I didn't hear any condemnation of the police or the district attorney in that issue. The district attorney covered it up because it was a former police officer and his son. In this situation, I heard that the police chief said, well, we have to do an investigation because, he was resisting the officers. That's what led to his death. The video didn't mean anything to the police chief.
Right.
Then he saw a separate video, Charlton, that came from a building security camera showing the police had walked him 40 feet from his own car, being cuffed up and set him down. And he saw that the officer that killed the man, Charlton, he wasn't even part of the pullover. He was an officer who showed up later and decided to do what he wanted to do, this egregious act. And so until I can get the broadcaster saying that this is wrong, this is police brutality, this is unnecessitated murder, then I'll speak up differently.
Well, let me ask, and maybe we don't know, because we're not, to be honest, no matter how much we feel we know what people think, there is a group mentality that I feel is going on. There's a guy by the name of Tim Wise. He wrote a book called White Skin Privilege, and it just dives right. It's like smacking me right in the face, because I'm one of those same guys that I believe in giving out those rules that I want to touch on, because a lot of young boys are out of school now, and law enforcement, they make a living on locking up black and brown kids. They just do it. It's intentional. It's not by mistake. But I just want to talk to them how to survive, because I feel most programs will touch on it for 5 or 10 minutes, and then they're on to Big C. When are we going to get football back? Do you think the SEC is really going to kick off? When guys
white skin privilege, Charlton, we see that every day in America. You look at it as the NFL is trying to address white skin privilege in the coaching ranks. They're trying to give you an incentive to hire a black man. You got to have an incentive. His qualifications are not good enough to be in the leadership role on the sidelines. That's white skin privilege, Charlton. When you look at the professional leagues, the NHL, there's no black head coaches in the NHL, Charlton. There's none of those. That's white skin privilege. When we look at Major League Baseball, very few black managers or even players in Major League Baseball now, Charlton. So when you look at the percentage of black players in the NBA and the NFL, it's not represented equally in the managerial and coaching position. So when you want to talk white skin privilege, they get the creme of the la creme. You don't need to read a book. All you got to do is walk out your door to see white skin privilege.
Well, that's interesting. I want to, how they do the prop betting in Vegas, Big C. They're going to be opening up Vegas for a couple of fights in the month of June. I would love to know, and I think it's going to be under. You think you're going to see more than one day of this by mainstream media, and because a lot of the times it happens for a day and then it's over. But the men that they're asking to get out and play, for the most part, they look like the same man that was murdered by 4 officers. And I just wonder, I wish I could get their voice, and I know you say you don't think about the athletes, but I do. I would love if more athletes came out and told any story that's happened. And I would love...
See, that falls back into that trap, Charlton, that we, as black people in society, we need athletes to be our voice in society. We need to play athletics to be relevant. If it's not dealing with a black athlete, then there's no relevancy in it as far as for black society. And that's what keeps us behind now, is that when you and others want to gravitate to say we need athletes to speak out, we elect people, Charlton. We vote people in and out of office.
Yeah.
And when we don't do that, we're not voting any athletes in office, Charlton. We're voting people who are supposed to be out there protecting our interests. Athletes don't protect our interests. They protect their bodies to survive in their sports. So until we elect government officials, Charlton, to protect us, athletes can say whatever they want. But they can't go in and get somebody arrested, Charlton. They can't go in and get somebody fired. They can't go in and change the law.
I understand what you're saying from a civic level, yes. But people don't tune
But
in.
isn't that how we survive is civically?
But you're not.
We
Well,
can't-
let me get my
there's no
point.
sports going on in America right now.
But you asked me a
So how are we
question.
surviving? We're surviving off the civil realm right now in America,
Oh,
Charlton.
okay.
There's no sports out there. You know, everybody's yearning for the sports. But if we sit around and just wait on athletes, those athletes go away, Charlton. When they wanted to silence Colin Kaepernick,
Yeah.
has he gotten a job? No. That's what they do to athletes, Charlton. Muhammad Ali was exiled for 3 years because he spoke up against, law enforcement, Charlton. So this is what they do to black athletes. They can silence them. They don't have a pulpit called the media. And when the government doesn't want them on the media, they're not going to be on there. When was the last time you saw Colin Kaepernick do an interview?
Well, if you ask me a question, you got to let me finish it, and that way you'll hear my story. What I was saying is we've heard from athletes because there's no shows that say watch the politicians. That's what the news is for. They cover so many stories to get in and out. What I was going to say is we have at some point in time the need or the desire for some of our white American brethren, and they happen to be athletes because politicians say what they got to say to get elected. But I would love to see if we had some of our white brethren stand out and say, you know what, this is wrong, and we're going to do whatever we can to support this, whether it's Black Lives Matter or Police Responsibility Act, whatever it happens to be. But other than a tweet or a signature on a card, I would love to see that, and I was going to ask you if we will see that passed today. And I'm thinking probably not, but I hope I'm wrong, and I wanted to get your thoughts on guys like Tom Brady, guys like Phil Mickelson, guys like Peyton Manning. They're always on television pushing sports. I know people hold Michael Jordan to a high accountability, but at that, I guess it was a rally or a protest today in Minneapolis, most of the people and the audience, they were Caucasian. That showed a lot of disdain and disgust about what happened. They weren't mostly black, they were mostly white. So my point is, do you think we'll see more white Americans, politicians? We've already heard from them. Any athletes, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is the second day that it's been on television. You caught the second day of it.
Yeah.
It will go throughout the week, Charlton. It will end by the weekend. But you also got to understand, Colin Kaepernick got ostracized from the NFL for doing the same thing that this police officer did to kill a man. Colin Kaepernick didn't kill anybody. He took a knee in protest of what this police officer did before he did it. And this police officer did the same thing Colin Kaepernick did, took a knee, but he killed a black man in doing that. Colin Kaepernick didn't kill anybody. But to have this voice from the general public, Charlton, we can have protests all the time.
Yeah.
We can have black athletes, even if a white athlete speaks up. J.J. Watt spoke up today. But is that the voice of America? We cannot rely on athletes. That's like going out to say, okay, Bill Gates, would Bill Gates have more levity if he spoke up against this? Would Warren Buffett have more levity if he spoke up against this?
Why don't they? That's a good question.
I would rather have those individuals speaking than an athlete, Charlton.
Yeah.
Someone who has political clout. That's what's going to make a difference. I remember when President Obama would speak up against these atrocities. We have a president right now who's lost over 100,000 people on his watch to COVID-19. And he's had multiple black people killed on his watch. And he won't address it. He has no empathy towards American citizens, Charlton. But until we get the politicians, the elected officials, I really appreciate what the mayor of Minneapolis did, Charlton, in saying that these men need to be charged with murder.
Yeah.
I appreciate the mayor because he's an elected civil official. What he said carries more weight than what any athlete could say. And he was white, Charlton. He's white. That's what you elect him for, is to protect and serve the civic life of everybody in your community.
Yeah. Well, we know it takes all, especially it takes dialogue. Before we get into the Big C pause, I just know, like I was telling you, when I was 18, I saw a similar thing happen to me, but I wasn't shot. I wasn't thrown to the ground, but I did see the gun pointed at me, which, I mean, even to this day, it makes me nervous when a police officer, especially if he's Caucasian, that pulls up behind me, because I've seen like there's something going on that we've yet to be let in on. And that's why I asked my white brethren, and many of them say, I don't know, I think it's just an isolated incident, as if they don't understand the history. We'll take the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about what will it take for all of us to do what Rodney King said. Can't we all just get along? We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. The apps that I really love are by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV or you're going to be looking at a still picture. And I know everybody has their own thoughts about that. And I just want to get back to this thing before we touch on a few more things, because I feel like what I've always said to other people, it's not just athletes, but those are the ones who have the most spotlight, Big C, and that's why I always ask for conscientious people to stand up. I want to do this quick thing, and I want your thoughts on it, and I always ask my white brethren to help out in this too. When Ryan Leaf, I think he was arrested he beat up his fiance, and you know, he's a broadcaster, covers not NFL football, but he covers college football for the Pac-12 network. He beat up his fiance down in Southern California, somewhere out near Palm Springs, and I believe he said he was out and the next day or the same day, and ironically, that happened around the same time, within 24 hours of Mr. Floyd being, I guess, choked out and lost his life for complying. And this thing that Ryan Leaf is probably going to get another job as a broadcaster soon. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I don't think he'll get a job as a broadcaster soon, Charlton. But what he did was completely different. He didn't take somebody's life. What he did was not acceptable domestic violence, Charlton. But we didn't witness that on television, so the allegations have to be found out in court. He'll get his day in court. He'll do a plea deal. But Mr. Floyd doesn't get a chance to do a plea deal, Charlton. We all witness that as human beings. And I'm talking about human compassion. I'm not talking about athletes. I'm talking about human compassion. There are political leaders all through Minneapolis and all through the United States. There are broadcast leaders all through the United States. If the man did something wrong, you got to say it.
Yeah.
You have to say it when we're witnessing it. You know, that it goes back to that old adage when I was young, before videos came out. It was nothing but still pictures.
Yeah.
And the terminology, Kodak doesn't lie, if they caught somebody on a picture.
Yeah.
They use Kodak doesn't lie. But we found out when Rodney King was beat up by the police officers in Southern California back in the early 90s, that videotape lied. That's what we found out.
Yep, that's what we hear. And so I just want to just tell people the way you fix it is talking about it. I want to just give my thoughts on some survival rules if ever stopped by law enforcement. I'm really thankful that my parents told me this stuff before I even got a driver's license. And many of my white friends, their parents never talked to them about this, other than call the police if something happens to you so they can help you. And I believe there's a lot of good officers too, but when the bad ones do bad, the good ones have to come out and say that's not right, and we have to put a stop to it. So my thoughts, people have their own opinion. Number one, be polite and respectful when stopped by the police, and keep your mouth closed as much as possible. Number two, remember that your goal is to get home safely. That's the number one thing. Number three, do not under any circumstances get into an argument. Number four, always remember that anything you say or do can be held against you in a court of law. That's why only a fool represents himself in court. Have your attorney speak for you. You have the right to remain silent. They tell you that. Number five, keep your hands in plain sight. Make sure the police can see your hands at all times. Number six, avoid physical contact with the police officer. No sudden movements. Keep your hands out of your pockets. Number seven, do not run even if you are afraid. Number eight, even if you believe that you are innocent, do not resist arrest. Number nine, do not make any statements about the incident until you are able to meet with your lawyer or public defender. Number 10, as much as possible, I'm going to say this, but I I remember it because I think it saved my life. You got to stay calm, remain in control, and watch your words and body language. Because when I saw the gun pointed at my face when I was 18, I about froze. And maybe I was being calm, but I still want to credit my parents for saying that you just got to be calm in those situations, even though some people don't make it through that. That's the best advice I can give. Big C, your thoughts?
How much of the video did you see, Charlton?
I saw what was shown on CNN. I think they showed about maybe a minute or 2 or 3 minutes.
All you saw was him on the ground with the knee in the back of the neck.
They showed him, but they took him out of the car. They put handcuffs on him. They had him behind his back.
So do you think that he was cooperating when he got out of the car and they let him put the handcuffs on him?
That's what it looks like to me, yeah.
Do you think he was cooperating when they walked him over to the curb about 40 feet from his car and asked him to sit down?
Yeah.
Do you think that he was cooperating when they walked him out to the car on the street? Then the video changed, Charlton. It was cut off.
Yes, I did.
Everything that you saw in the video showed this man cooperating, just as you suggested, didn't it?
Yeah.
So you never saw him being confrontational with the police. He turned around and addressed a few issues. It seemed like he was saying that the cuffs are kind of tight. But every action they asked him to do, he cooperated with.
Yeah.
So, I mean, beyond cooperating in every measure, when you got a guy that has an intent to kill you, there's nothing you can do about that. He had a guy that came up who was not the officer who walked him away from the car, who was not the officer who put handcuffs on him,
yeah,
who was not the officer involved in the stop. He had an officer arrive that after he was already detained, Charlton, had the intent to kill the man, to make it a mission to make a point out of this individual. So everything that you said was correct, and this man did all that. Mr. Floyd did all that to stay alive. He even pleaded with the officer that he could not breathe. He pleaded with the officer for his mother. He asked for his mother. And he just asked him to take his knee off his neck. He said he would get in the back of the car as the officer was using profanities to him. He said if he took his knee out of his neck, he would get in the back of the car.
Yeah.
He did everything from a cooperative standpoint that you would ask of anybody, that you would ask of your child, you would ask of another citizen. And it still cost him his life.
Yeah.
What's the answer for that?
Well, do you have a different opinion on the 10 rules that I just gave to keep someone alive if you ever confronted by law enforcement?
He did all of that, Charlton.
But
when
I'm not.
You have an individual.
But let me ask you this question. Let me ask you a question.
You can't do anything when you're defenseless, Charlton. We saw that in Mr. Arbery's murder in Georgia. There was an individual with an intent to kill him. There was nothing he could do against him. The individual was armed, just like this officer was armed to kill him, and that was his intent, and he did it, Charlton. He resisted his other fellow officers. He resisted the paramedics in giving this man an opportunity to breathe.
Yeah.
He did all those things. This was murder with malice, Charlton, with malice.
Yeah. I still want to give you your chance to ask, do you have any suggestions for African-American men that are pulled over by law enforcement how to survive? Your thoughts?
You gave all those answers, Charlton. I mean, all you can do is cooperate. You can't stop somebody who has a malice intent to kill you from stop killing you unless you can leave the scene, Charlton, expeditiously.
Yeah.
He cooperated fully. Just in the instructions you gave, he followed all of those, Charlton.
Yeah.
So when you have somebody that shows up with malice intent, there's nothing you can do against that.
Yeah, and that information that I cited actually came from law enforcement on how to comply and behave. But sometimes you can't measure the heart of men.
But you said he cooperated in all of those things that you named off, Charlton. He did all those things.
Yep,
that's why. Over.
He
got out the car when they asked him. The only reason they got him out the car because they had his information that he provided.
Yeah.
He provided that for him. He got out. He turned around and let them cuff him. He didn't fight against that. He walked to the sidewalk being cuffed up, Charlton. They said, sit down. He sit down. He cooperated in every way until a rogue officer with malice showed up and took his life.
Let me ask you your thought before I get on to just a couple more things, because it still make me, kind of queasy in my stomach. I don't want that to happen to me or anybody I care about, but I'm still looking for my white American brethren to tell me when this happened to them. Ryan Leaf beats up a fiance, gets out of jail the next day.
Let me give you an example of what happened today, Charlton, back in Connecticut.
Yeah.
A white guy who grew up in Newtown, where they had the school shooting several years ago that President Barack Obama addressed about the kids being killed, the 22 who lost their lives in that grammar school.
Yeah.
There's an individual, 23 years old today, killed 2 people, kidnapped a girl of one of the people that he killed from this area. The police held a press conference today pleading for this young man to turn himself in. Now, he's already killed 2 people and kidnapped a girl. And during this pandemic, it's easy for him to run around with a mask on so he's not recognized everybody.
Yeah.
He's a white guy. He does this. They're pleading for him to turn himself in. If he was
Really?
black, they would not be pleading for him to turn himself in. They'd just be outright looking to kill him. But you're doing a plea, a civil plea, holding a press conference. Please turn yourself in. We just want to question you.
Yeah.
Knowing that he has killed 2 people, he has robbed people, he has stolen guns, pistols and long guns, and the police are also pleading with him. Please turn yourself in. If you're black, you don't get that same type of civil treatment, Charlton.
No, it's like the Kerner Commission. It's just Kerner Commission Part 2. And again, I think everybody at some point in time, we're going to see this push to get us the same profile of the African Americans like Mr. Floyd. Get out there and start playing sports because we really want to see our teams play. And I would love to see them put as much emphasis on keeping people alive because that matters too. I mean, that's just my opinion. I want to just talk on slightly because, former heavyweight champion Mike Tyson, who's had his own challenges when it comes to law, and he's had 2 fight offers in the past week. And I know he had his own time where he served some jail time over an incident with Renee Washington, I believe was her name. And everybody has their own past to deal with and to atone and try to do better in the future. But if you can tell me why we're seeing, other than money, what does Mike Tyson really have to offer the boxing public? I think he's older than Ali than when Ali had his last fight. Big C, your thoughts?
Mike Tyson is 53 years old. He hasn't fought in about 20 years, Charlton. What he offers is intrigue. The world has always been intrigued with Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was that enigma when he was a boxer.
Yeah.
That everybody, you stop what you're doing. When people talk about the movement that Tiger Woods made in the golf world, when he took over the golf world at the young age of 19,
yeah,
Mike Tyson did that in the professional boxing ring at the age of 19. You have to understand, professional boxing, when it was at its heyday, you held a title that was called World Heavyweight
World Champion. Yeah.
World. That's a hell of a title to have. Not World Series champion, not Super Bowl champion, world champion. That meant that everybody from the world recognized you. When Ali was at his height, he was the most recognized figure in the world.
Yeah.
Just as Mike Tyson was. He was the most recognized figure in the world when he was at his height. And he still has some of that enigma today. And that's why people are interested in him. When you look at him at 53 years of age, Charlton, he's in much better shape than a lot of boxers that are fighting today.
Yeah.
And that intrigue, does he still have that one fight left in him? That's what people are interested in. That it only takes one punch when you're a fighter to win a championship. We saw that with Buster Douglas when he took the title from Tyson. And Tyson was offered this week $20 million to be in a bare-knuckle championship.
He'll do it.
That's how fighting started. When you look at the heavyweights in the 1900s, they fought with bare knuckles before they put the gloves on, Charlton. That's how they fought. And so somebody came up with the offer of $20 million
He'll take it.
to Mike Tyson for the bare-knuckle fighting championship.
Yeah.
He was also offered a fight with Tyson Fury, the current heavyweight champion of the world.
Yeah.
Now, these two men are about a foot apart in height.
Yeah.
But you think about the interest that would draw. You got Tyson Fury, the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world.
Yep.
And Mike Tyson is 53 years old, coming out of retirement. And Tyson Fury was named after Mike Tyson by his parents.
Isn't that something? Yeah, as far as seeing that compared to 2 men relatively the same age, I think it would just be a spectacle, obviously. $20 million, Big C. Anybody would get in the ring for $20 million. All you got to do, take some ibuprofen to get over the pain once you're done with it. So would I watch it? I mean, I would have to wait until it was free. I wouldn't pay for it. I want to remember Mike Tyson as the guy that when he knocked out, it was Michael Spinks in about the first round. I think it was 90 seconds into it. That's the Tyson I saw. I also remember the Tyson that fought Evander Holyfield twice, and he kind of tapped out, if that makes any sense to you. But that's the Mike Tyson I recall. But for $20 million, a lot of guys would get in the ring and Big C, your thoughts.
Well, we're in a world of entertainment and excitement. And if you look at a match like that, Charlton, I think it would break records as far as pay-per-view viewership. Wanting to see this age difference between 2 men. You got one guy in his mid-20s, You got another guy that's 53 years old. You think about it. Nobody 53 years old has ever won the world heavyweight title.
Yeah.
So you would have potential history in the making. And the people who grew up when Tyson was at his height, everybody would be interested in that. Tyson brought back the interest in the heavyweight ranks.
Yeah.
It had started waning at the end of Larry Holmes' career. But Mike Tyson, when he walked in, he brought people back to a bygone era of boxing that existed in the 50s and 60s where the knockout artist was the king, where you went to a fight and you knew there was not going to be a decision at the end of the fight.
Yeah.
That's what Mike Tyson brought back to everybody's mind. And to have an opportunity to see potentially that once again, after what Tyson Fury did to Deontay Wilder in dominating him in 2 fights, Charlton.
Yeah.
I mean, the world would tune in, and I think it would be probably the biggest pay-per-view event ever. It would far exceed anything that Mayweather has ever done. And you're talking about fighters in this fight, Charlton?
Yeah.
They would get purses in excess of $250,000 each.
Yeah. That big. If the money's right, what did Don King say? Only in America. Only in America is always the right thing to say, Big C. I wish him nothing but the best. We're in a world of entertainment anyway. When Sylvester Stallone is in a movie, and he played Rocky, and Rocky was gripping. I remember seeing my first Rocky movie, and he fought Apollo Creed back in the day. It wasn't real, but it sure sold a lot of tickets at the box office, Big C. Maybe we'll see Tyson Fury and Iron Mike Tyson also. I want to go to the world of Major League Baseball because they were talking about the billionaire owners asking guys that make a few $1 million to take a pay cut. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the players said hell no to that. We're not taking the pay cut that you're talking about. You won't show us your books.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to show us your books about how much you're losing or that you stand to lose, why should we lose money in this endeavor?
Yeah.
And just like when they opened up the COVID testing center at Dodger Stadium yesterday, Charlton, that was a sign to me that baseball wasn't going to be played. And now that they're asking the top players in baseball, the top paid players in baseball to take a 70% pay cut. These guys are not going to do that. And then the lower tier in baseball, they're asking them to take a 50 to 60% pay cut. They're not going to do that. People are not going to work. And I understand it's difficult for people during this pandemic that have lost their jobs and they're on unemployment to hear billionaires and millionaires haggling over who's not going to take a pay cut. But they're not the feeding source of players making the money. It comes from television revenue, them tuning in at home.
Yeah.
But, it's like in any other workforce in America, Charlton. It's hard to come in and ask the employees, look, we want you to take this huge pay cut because we may not make the money we expect to.
$4 billion.
We definitely won't make it if you don't play.
Yeah, you got a good gig going for you when collectively you can lose about $4 billion if you don't play half of the season. That's incredible, but it's all fair and level war. I want to go over to the NFL, Big C. NFL Players Association president, he says that a center for the Cleveland Browns made it clear the players union has not yet agreed on any plans to return to team facilities, and that's what he plans unless the money's big enough. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, and that's understandable because the league has not laid out any guidelines, Charlton, on how they plan to keep the players safe amid this COVID-19. They haven't talked about testing. They haven't talked about, social distancing. They haven't talked about, what happens if a player contacts this disease, Charlton. And if multiple players contact this disease, how do you quarantine them and how do you quarantine the rest of the league? They're going to have to go back to their families at the end of the day, Charlton. You can't take the entire NFL and put them in 3 or 4 cities around the country and say, this is where we're going to isolate you guys in hotels and keep you separated from the public. Because even in that, Charlton, you have a petri dish. Just like when they're talking about the NBA, they're talking about playing in 2 different facilities. You have a petri dish because those players, if one player tests positive, you got a dozen players test positive. And then what do you do about keeping the safety and health of the rest of those players? And then what do you do about the rest of your season?
Just called close the blinds eye. Big C, in New Zealand, Super Rugby is set to resume next month. However, they want to avoid scrums, they want to avoid tackling, and they really want to avoid spitting on your opponents. What can the NFL do if you can't spit and tackle people, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, think about Major League Baseball. They're talking about banning spitting from Major League Baseball. That's what everybody does.
Everybody spits.
They spit, Charlton. They grab their crotch. They high-five each other. They rub their forehead and touch the baseball with it. They're going to throw it to somebody else after they do that, Charlton. They drink out of the same bottles. Baseball does all of these things. They dip into the same sunflower seed bucket.
Yeah.
You know, half of them bite off the same bag of tobacco that they're chewing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as baseball and rugby's tougher than football. I don't know if
You think
people
so?
understand rugby, but it's football without pads and helmets. That's what rugby is. It's not touch. It's a very physically violent game. You cannot play rugby without doing that, so you can't have the game.
Yeah, it's funny, too, because even in Australia, in Sydney, Australia, 2 days from the restart of the National Rugby League, Australian Medical Association urged organizers to slow down he asking for the Big C pause, but they call it slow down the absurd and dangerous plans to have spectators in the stadiums by July 1st. So even with the United States alone, unfortunately, 100,000 fatalities, and everybody saying, let's play ball. When we had a handful of fatalities, they shut everything down, Big C. But if you have everybody around the world saying, we're going to play anyway, I think we've already let the cat out of the bag, and now they're just going to focus on what they call recovery, or as people get infected, they're going to say, well, we'll just use medications to treat it. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, and that's the hard part about all of this, Charlton. When we had one person test positive in the NBA and then the second positive, they shut down the league. They shut down the league for 3 months now.
Yeah.
And now they're talking about putting the players back together. Knowing that once you get them back together, you're going to have somebody test positive. There's no way, even if you have just the players and essential personnel at a game, Charlton, that you're not going to do this. You do this because of the particles that pass through the air and physical touching. You're not going to be wearing masks out there playing basketball. You're not going to be able not to perspire playing basketball. And even in football, it's even worse, Charlton. There's more physical contact. There's physical contact between 12 guys on every play. As soon as the play starts in football, all the linemen. There's physical contact right away. And so there's no social distancing. And so to say that everybody is so callous about getting these sports back, and college sports is going to be back first. It's the first sacrificial lamb.
The guinea pig,
They'll be back on campus June 8th. They're the first sacrificial lamb because they don't get any money. The guys that are getting paid are like, hey, we're going to pump our brakes on this. We're going to let the media talk about we want to be back, but we're not going to say we want to be back.
Yeah, not even the media is back yet, Big C. There's still a lot of people that are not in the same studio. There's a couple of guys that are doing it because, they just want to, I guess maybe they're told to get out there and do it. But it's all fair and love and war. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. The apps that I love are by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I've been introduced Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. I want to close out before we close out, in Madrid, Spain, soccer fans, they may be back in the stands for the 2020-21 season. So it's not just the United States, it's all the money leagues that are going to do everything to get fans back in the game. The only sports that's really talking about getting back without compensation is college football, because that's where the boys play for free. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, and that's where the money is. When you think about the total number of college football games, Charlton, it outweighs all the other sports combined. It outweighs the NFL as far as revenue generated.
Yeah, more teams.
When you think about if you put all those teams together and add it up versus 32 NFL teams, and you have 130 Division I college football teams alone. Not talking about 1AA in Division II and NAIA in Division III.
Yeah.
So when you start adding up all the dollars from college football and the Power 5 conferences alone, equals the amount of revenue that the NFL makes.
Yeah, it really does. I just hope that we can, I know we talk about a lot of things, and I'm hoping and praying that we can still have more dialogue on how to keep people safe. I think the world is better even when we don't agree, but we can have dialogue, and I always think that's great. I just want to see my white brethren do it. Show as much interest in Black Lives Matter as you do in saying, let's play ball again, but that's just my opinion. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, my sympathy to all the Americans that have lost lives, their families, and their friends. You know, our prayers and wishes are with you. And thank you to the frontline healthcare workers that do your diligent job every day, the doctors, the nurses, the first responders. And I hope in World of Sports that they can make this Tyson fight go off, because I may, for once, pay for pay-per-view.
You and Big C might pay for something. You can pay for something too. Every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide, you can follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, that's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports Show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.